All right, in this lesson, we're going to take a look at coming up with a cut list for this. So there's a couple ways we can figure out the best way to cut this material out of our lumber. One basic way really would just be to take this Excel file here and start kind of drawing this out on a grid paper. That would kind of really be an old school way of doing it. And that's not too bad if you're just doing one cabinet. If you feel like you can be efficient with space and your material, and then you just want to draw it out on some grid paper or a blank piece of paper, knock yourself out. When we start doing multiple cabinets for an entire kitchen set or a large built-in, it can be a little intimidating to do all that. So there's a program I recommend that is free, and it is available at Optimalon. It's optimalon.com, and you could use it for free, or you can pay $10 for a month, and you get a little more capabilities. So what this software will do, this web app here, it allows you to create a project and enter various pieces of wood and the stock you're buying it, or the stock you're cutting it out of, and it will come up with an optimized cut sheet for you. So this is my account. I'm logged in here, and I will provide a link to this in the lesson notes, but you can see by looking at it that I've got some of my other previous past projects, and you can only have up to 10 projects at a time for the basic $10 a month plan. So I actually had to delete a couple to make some room here. But you can see my home office, router table, all that stuff's on here. So what we'll do is we'll create a new project, and we'll call this base cabinet 1. Okay, because there'll be another one too. So we'll create that project. I may have to log back in here. Okay, I'm going to log back in and try that again. Okay, log back in. Let's try this one again. Let's gonna call base cabinet 1. Let's try that again. Create project. Okay, that worked. I had let it expire for a while. All right. First thing I'm going to do is go into some settings, units. I'm going to go all inches here. Rather than feet or millimeters. But if you're in the UK and you're taking this course and you want to, if you prefer millimeters, knock yourself out. So we're just going to do inches, fraction or decimal. I can read either, but for this we'll do fractions. We'll hit save. Kerf, saw kerf. So the saw kerf is how wide the blade is, and you have to account for that when you're cutting. So a typical saw blade is 1/8 of an inch. So what we're just putting 0.125 or 0.13. We actually just do 1/8. Okay, and save. Minimum waist, panel trims. This stuff we don't need to worry about too much about. Options, first cut orientation. Don't worry about this too much. Rotation. So this is kind of what you end up with once you plug a project in. Anyway, let's do stock panels. And again, we're going to be putting this in for this first cabinet, and then I'll repeat it for the top cabinet and show you the results for that later. But we want to be clear when we do this that we're sticking with the right material, or at least the same material. So we'll do the 3/4 inch thick birch in one kind of project, and then we'll do another one for the poplar and another one for the maple ply. So that's how you would do this. And I can add the top cabinet birch together and then just call them different parts. So I'll show you what I mean. So let's start with the sides, 31 by 24, all right? So we'll create a new list of panels we want. Okay, create a new panel. So this is what we're cutting the wood out of, and we're gonna be buying basically 4x8 sheets. This would be a 4x8 sheet of birch, 4x8, 3/4 inch thick, right? Birch. So you can call it whatever you want. Panel length, it's going to be, they're usually 4x8 or round 4x8. So we'll do 96 by 48. And I'll just assume like 3 panels. Assume high And then if you don't use that many, it won't try to use 3. It'll try to use the minimum, but we'll just put in 3 for now. If you don't put the minimum in, if I put in say 1 and it required 3 or 4 panels, you get an error when you run it. So we'll hit save. Okay, so that's our panel there. We'll run parts on this now. So we'll do parts. We'll create a new part, and the first part we'll call, this will be the bottom cabinet sides. All right, and I think we said, let's take a look at that. It was 31 by 24. Okay, 31 by 24. And I think there's two, right? 2 sides? Yeah, of course, 2 sides. All right. Save. And there it is, it's listed. And we want this, so you can, it asks you, is it okay if we rotate this part for optimal, to optimize the cutting, and we don't want to do that. Reason being, grain rotation, I think, is relatively important, so we will keep that as a non-rotatable part, but that's up to you. Next piece we would add will be our bottom. It's 28.5 by 23. So create new part, and we'll call this bottom. Right, and terrible memory, so I'm just going to go check it again. 28.5 by 23. So I can do 28 and 1/2 by 23. And this is the bottom. There's only one of these. Save. And again, I'll unclick. Can rotate. So we're going to basically, I'm going to pause this and fill in the rest of these parts, but I think you get the idea of what's going on here. We're going to list all our 3/4 inch thick parts, and we'll run the project, and it'll give us a list of basically our cut sheets. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and pause this now. Okay, so I took a few minutes and added the rest of this one particular part. And you'll see I have all the bottom pieces in here: sides, bottom, stretchers, shelf, and then the top parts: sides, top, bottom. So I separated by bottom, and you could do this differently if you were going to do multiple cabinets. So you may have what you may want to do is label each cabinet with a number. So cabinet 1, cabinet 2, and so on. So I'm calling this bottom cabinet and top cabinet. So you may want to call this, 1 sides, 1 bottom, 1 stretchers, 1 shelf, yada. And this would be maybe cabinet 6 sides, 6 top. In this case, I just have bottom and top, and I'm calling them bottom sides. So I get the situation when you have bottom, bottom, top, top. But that's how I did it. So bottom cabinet stuff, top cabinet stuff. And again, this is all the parts that are 3/4 inch thick birch. We'd have to repeat this process for the 1/4 inch material, for the 1/2 inch material, for the hardwood. So it's not extremely efficient, but it's still better than doing it on paper. So this is what you're seeing here, is the alternative to doing something like Cabinet Planner. Okay, so when we use that software Cabinet Planner and we do a whole kitchen set, it does all of this for you. You don't have to enter it. When you draw that little cabinet on that screen and you already pick all your settings and you hit calculate or whatever it is, it goes through each of these and comes up with a list of all your parts. So it's a big time saver. But again, if you're just doing this for a couple cabinets at a time, this is probably the way to go. All right, so with all of these parts listed, I realized I probably shouldn't have called this base cabinet 1. I should have probably have called this cabinet 3/4 inch birch project or something. All right, so we have all these in here. All the rotates are off, the dimensions are in there, the counts are in there. Again, we'll just check our stock panels. I have a 4x8 3/4 inch birch, and it is 8 feet long, 4 feet wide, and I'm going to say, let's just assume I need 3 of them. So what I'm going to do is come over here to run project and hit start calculation. Okay, and it took less than a second. Utilization rate 51%. So I think that's basically saying you gave us 3 panels, we used 51% of them. So you can check out the results on the left side menu for results. And you see there's more options over here now, by layouts, by panels, waste parts, print to PDF, export. So these are options you can't get in the free version. I believe if you want to print to PDF and stuff, you'd have to, you pay the $10, but there is a free version of this you can do. So let's see by layout. All right, so it used 2 sheets. So I have, these are each of my 3 sheets I said I had of 4x8 birch. Sheet 1 used 93% of it, and sheet 2 used almost 10% of it. So that third sheet we definitely don't need. And you can see an image of this first sheet. See what that looks like. So there's our cut sheet for that first sheet of plywood. One of the bummers about this program I don't love is these aren't labeled. The dimensions are on here for a lot of them. So 24 by 31, 24 by 31. So parts 1 and 5 are the sides to our base cabinet. 23, 20 and a half. This is probably, what I have to look, 23 by 20 and a half, right? Base cabinet 23, 28 and a half. Okay, so that's our base cabinet's bottom board. So you kind of have to print this out and write on here later on which of these parts are what while you're cutting this. Down here 8, 9, 10, 11, these are stretchers. So it's not terribly, it could be a little better in terms of how it labels these, but it's still, this is great. I would never come up with something this efficient on my own here. So typically, when you're looking at this, the dark blue are your parts. The dark blue lines are where you're going to make your cuts, and these light blue areas are the waste product areas. Okay, so this is labeled 6. I don't know why that's called 6, but there's part 6 over here, and it's an 11 by 16 and a half board. I believe these are the top cabinets, top and bottom parts, and these are the top cabinets. One of these is the sides. So if I zoom in. If I keep zooming, you can actually keep zooming in on this. You can print this out. Let's go to the next layout. Here's the next layout, and it's a 4x8 sheet. I'll zoom out so you can see this. It's one 4x8 sheet of plywood, and there's only one part on it. That's a bummer, but we have all this extra wood. We can use something else in another project. So if I were to take this if I wanted to buy this lumber at Lowe's or Home Depot, because they do sell 3/4 inch thick birch plywood, and I only have a small car, I don't have a truck anymore. So what I would do is I would have Lowe's or Home Depot, I would cut this line, but actually have them cut it longer. So instead of cutting it at the 12-inch mark, because they're notoriously inaccurate, I would probably have them cut it around 15 inches and then cut it someplace down in the middle, and then I would fit that in my car. For this board, there's a little bit of waste material over here in the far right edge, and if you look at the widths here, 24 and 23, that's 47 inches. So you can actually have them cut it at around 25 inches and push these pieces over to the right a little bit and be okay. So the order of cuts here, you'd cut this long piece first, between 1 and 2, and then you could cut all of these to their individual lengths and more specific widths. So that's how this program works. We can do this, print to PDF. Let's see, let's do this by panels. Yeah, so, you have a cut list here too. Look at that. So it tells you, okay, so this one's labeled a little better. If I zoom in more, see if it actually shows the rest of those. I don't think it does. So that's helpful. But cut 1. Oh, okay. So this is a feature I haven't used yet. When you do cut list, you can actually tells you what's the best order to do this in terms of efficiency. Obviously, cut 1 would be this longitudinal one here. Cut 2. At this point, it's arbitrary. But if you're looking for guidance on which ones to cut in what order, this is helpful. So what I'm going to do is finish this program for the rest of my parts. I'll make one for the 1/4 inch material and for the drawer stuff, and then we'll go from there. But that's how you use Optimalon. So far we've been able to figure out what our dimensions are, how we're building it. We have a complete list of our parts. And then we have a cut list. We have a parts list and a cut list. So I basically, once I do the other parts, the 1/4 inch stuff, the 1/2 inch material, and the hardwood, I'll be able to take that to call up a supplier and get quotes and all that stuff. And we'll do that in our next section when we start looking for lumber, where we get it and all that stuff. So we'll discuss that. But that's it for this lesson.